there's a good chance you're doing something tonight that could be making your sleep worse. And you probably won't even realize it. You brush your teeth, turn off the lights, climb into bed, grab your phone for just 5 minutes, and suddenly you check one message, then another. Maybe you watch a video. Maybe you start thinking about tomorrow's problems. And when you finally put the phone down, you expect your body to shut off instantly, but it doesn't. You stare at the ceiling, you turn over, you check the clock, and the next morning, you wake up feeling like you barely slept at all. Here's what makes this interesting. Your sleep doesn't begin when your head hits the pillow. Your brain starts preparing for sleep long before that. The final hour of your day can either send your body a powerful signal that it's time to slow down, or keep your nervous system in stay alert mode. And some of the habits that interfere with that process are things you probably consider completely normal. Tonight, I'm going to show you 7 common things you should reconsider before bed. And number 1 is especially important because it has nothing to do with your mattress, your bedroom, or how many hours you spend in bed. It's about something you do every single day that can quietly push your internal clock in the wrong direction. The first habit is checking your phone in bed. Think about how this usually happens. You're tired, you've already decided it's bedtime. Then your phone lights up. You pick it up just to check one notification. Maybe you open Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok. You tell yourself you'll stop after one more video. But your brain doesn't know that you only plan to scroll for 5 minutes. It simply sees light, movement, information, emotions, and stimulation. Your phone can become especially disruptive at night because your brain uses light as one of its major signals for regulating the sleep-wake cycle. As evening becomes darker, your body receives environmental cues that nighttime is approaching. Bright light in the evening can interfere with those signals. And then there's the content itself. A funny video might make you laugh. A stressful message might make you angry. A news story might make you anxious. A social media argument might send your thoughts racing. So even though you're physically lying in bed, your brain may still be processing new information. You're asking your body to sleep while simultaneously telling your brain, "Pay attention, something new is happening." That's why one of the simplest changes you can make is to create a small buffer between screen time and sleep. You don't need to throw your phone away. You don't need to live like it's 1995. Start with 20 or 30 minutes without stimulating screen use before bed. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Dim the lights. Put the phone farther away from your pillow, and give your brain something it rarely gets anymore: silence. Because sometimes the reason you can't sleep isn't that you need more stimulation, it's that you haven't given your brain enough time to stop receiving it. Now let's talk about something that happens in the kitchen. You're already in bed, but suddenly you're hungry. You walk into the kitchen. You open the refrigerator. You see leftovers, and 5 minutes later, you're eating a full meal at 10:30 or 11 p.m. This brings us to number 6. Eating a large meal right before bed. Eating at night isn't automatically unhealthy, and your digestive system doesn't simply shut down when the sun goes down. But eating a very large meal immediately before lying down can create problems for some people. You may feel overly full. You may feel uncomfortable. And if you're prone to acid reflux or heartburn, lying down soon after eating can make those symptoms worse. And there's a psychological trap here too. You may think, "I'm eating because I need energy." But sometimes you're actually eating because you're tired, stressed, bored, or simply following a routine you've repeated for years. If you're genuinely hungry, you don't necessarily need to force yourself to sleep hungry. A smaller, balanced snack may make more sense. But try not to turn bedtime into your second dinner. If you frequently experience nighttime heartburn, pay attention to your meal timing and the foods that trigger your symptoms. Because if your body is uncomfortable, your brain has a much harder time settling down. And now we get to number 5. And this one could be hiding in the mug sitting beside you. Caffeine. You drink your afternoon coffee and feel completely normal. You're not shaking, you're not bouncing off the walls. You feel tired enough to sleep later. So you assume the caffeine has worn off, but caffeine doesn't disappear simply because you no longer feel stimulated. It can remain in your system for hours, and people process caffeine at different rates. That means the coffee you drink in the afternoon may still be influencing your body when you're trying to sleep at night. And remember, caffeine isn't only coffee. It can come from energy drinks, tea, soda, chocolate, pre-workout products, and certain medications. Here's the mistake. People often ask, "Can I fall asleep after drinking caffeine?" That's not the only question. A better question is, how well do I sleep after drinking it? Because you might fall asleep and still experience less restorative sleep or more nighttime disruption. So if you're struggling with sleep, experiment. Move your last caffeine earlier in the day. Give yourself several hours between your final caffeinated drink and bedtime. If you're sensitive to caffeine, consider an even longer gap, and don't worry about giving up coffee forever. You're simply testing whether timing matters for your body. Now, number 4 is different, because this one can make you feel relaxed while potentially making your sleep less restful. Alcohol. A lot of people use alcohol as a nighttime ritual. Maybe it's a glass of wine after work. Maybe it's a beer while watching television. Maybe it's a drink because you've had a stressful day. And yes, alcohol can make some people feel sleepy. But sleepiness and healthy sleep aren't the same thing. Alcohol can alter normal sleep patterns and contribute to awakenings later in the night. You may fall asleep quickly and then find yourself awake hours later. That's why someone can say, "I slept for 8 hours and still wake up feeling terrible." Alcohol can also worsen snoring and sleep-disordered breathing in some people. So if you already snore heavily, wake up gasping, or suspect you may have sleep apnea, using alcohol as a nightly sleep strategy deserves particular caution. Instead, try replacing the ritual rather than simply removing it. Take a warm shower. Read a physical book. Stretch gently. Listen to calming music. Dim the lights. Make your environment quieter. Your goal isn't to force sleep. Your goal is to create the conditions in which sleep can happen naturally. And now we're getting closer to the biggest mistakes. Because number 3 has nothing to do with food or drinks. It has to do with where you work. Your bedroom. Laptop open. Phone next to you. Emails coming in. Work notifications popping up. One last spreadsheet. One last message. One last task. And before you realize it, your bedroom has become your office. That can create a powerful association in your brain. Your brain learns from repetition. If you repeatedly use your bed for work, stressful conversations, scrolling, watching stimulating content, and worrying about tomorrow, your brain can start associating that environment with being awake. Then you finally turn off the lights and think, "Okay, now sleep." But your brain may have learned something completely different. Bed is where we stay active. That's why creating boundaries can help. Whenever possible, work somewhere other than your bed. Finish emails before your wind-down routine. Keep stressful tasks outside the bedroom. And once you get into bed, try to make the environment as boring as possible. Dark, quiet, comfortable, predictable. Boring sounds terrible. But for sleep, boring can be exactly what you want. Now, number 2 is something almost everyone has experienced. You're exhausted. You finally get under the covers, and then your brain decides it's time to solve every problem you've ever had. You start thinking about money, your job, your relationship, tomorrow's schedule, something embarrassing you said 3 years ago, a conversation you need to have, and suddenly you're wide awake. This is number 2. Stressful conversations and mental overload right before bed. Your body can be physically tired while your mind is still highly activated, and if you intentionally start an emotionally intense conversation right before sleep, you may find it much harder to wind down. Of course, real life happens. Emergencies happen. Important conversations sometimes can't wait. But when possible, create a boundary around your final part of the evening. If something is bothering you, write it down. If tomorrow has 10 tasks, make a list. If you're worried about forgetting something, put it on paper. You're essentially telling your brain, I have recorded this. I don't need to keep rehearsing it. And that simple transition can be powerful, because the brain loves unfinished business. If you give it no place to put your worries, it may bring them into bed with you. Now we've reached number 1, and this may be the most important habit of all. Because you can have the perfect bedroom, you can turn off your phone, you can avoid caffeine, you can eat dinner early, and you can still struggle with sleep if your schedule is constantly changing. Number 1 is going to bed at completely different times every night. Think about your week. Monday, 10:30 p.m. Tuesday, midnight. Wednesday, 11:45. Thursday, 1:30 a.m. Saturday, sleep until noon. Sunday night comes. You get into bed early because you have work Monday morning, but you're not tired, so you lie there, you check your phone, you get frustrated, and suddenly it's 1 a.m. Then Monday morning arrives, and you're exhausted. Your body has an internal timing system called the circadian rhythm. It uses signals from your environment, especially light and darkness, along with your daily schedule, to help coordinate sleep and wakefulness. You don't have to go to bed at exactly the same minute every night. Life is too unpredictable for that. But a reasonably consistent sleep and wake schedule can provide your body with more predictable signals. And here's where people often make another mistake. They try to compensate for a bad week by sleeping until noon on Saturday and Sunday. It feels amazing. But then Sunday night arrives, and your body simply isn't ready for sleep at your usual time. Instead of trying to completely reset your schedule every weekend, try keeping your wake-up time relatively consistent. And there's another powerful signal you can use: morning light. When you wake up, get outside if you can. Take a walk. Sit near a bright window. Open the curtains. Natural daylight provides your body with an important time cue. You're telling your brain, this is morning. Then later, as evening arrives and your environment becomes darker, your body receives another signal. Night is coming. That daily rhythm matters. And once you understand this, you realize something important. Your sleep routine doesn't begin at bedtime. It begins much earlier. It starts with what time you wake up. It continues with the light you see during the day. It continues with your caffeine timing, your activity, your meals, your stress, and eventually, the final hour before bed, all play a role in preparing your body for sleep. That's why you shouldn't think of sleep as something you suddenly switch on. Think of it as a process. You gradually turn the volume down, and if you've been sleeping poorly for months, don't assume you simply need more discipline. Persistent sleep problems can have many causes. If you regularly experience loud snoring, gasping, or choking during sleep, severe daytime sleepiness, frequent nighttime awakenings, or ongoing insomnia, it's worth discussing those symptoms with a healthcare professional. Sometimes the solution isn't another sleep hack. Sometimes the underlying problem needs to be identified. So tonight, before you get into bed, remember these 7 habits. Don't let your phone become your nighttime alarm clock. Don't turn bedtime into a second dinner. Don't underestimate late-day caffeine. Don't use alcohol as your primary sleep strategy. Don't turn your bedroom into your office. Don't carry stressful conversations and tomorrow's problems into bed if you can avoid it. And most importantly, don't let your sleep schedule become completely unpredictable. You don't need to change everything tonight. Maybe tonight you put your phone across the room. Maybe you stop drinking caffeine later in the afternoon. Maybe you write down tomorrow's tasks before getting into bed. Maybe you simply go to bed at the same time you did yesterday. One small change, then another. Because better sleep usually isn't created by one magical trick. It's created by hundreds of small signals telling your brain the same thing over and over again. You're safe. The day is finished. It's time to slow down. It's time to recover. And tomorrow morning, when you wake up feeling better, you may realize something surprising. The most important part of your sleep wasn't the moment you closed your eyes. It was everything you did before you closed them. So tonight, don't just ask yourself, what time am I going to bed? Ask yourself, what am I doing to prepare my body for sleep? Because your nighttime routine may be one of the simplest health habits you can improve. And you don't need a perfect routine. You just need a better one.